So you can go back to any of the workout, anything that you hear from the message tonight. It'll be on our Faith RX page. But we just really appreciate your patience and joining us today. Hopefully you'll be able to work out a little bit with Mike. He has an awesome workout set up for us. But I just want to say thank you. And you know, just if you can allow this time to just really spend time in the Word and what you're going to hear, spend time working out if you can, and just kind of forgetting about everything that's going on in the world. It's so hard when we hear about it all the time. So I'm Kristen. I am the incoming chapter director. Sarah, she's on the call as well. She is transitioning, and she's our regional manager, our regional director. So we have her. Mike is our coach. This is his garage that you're seeing. I don't know if you see him or if that's just me, but Mike is our coach. Addison is one of our chaplains. And then we have a couple other folks on our leadership team that can be here tonight. So you'll see us. Hopefully we've met you at a gym before. If not, hopefully as the kind of quarantines lift, we'll be able to see you in the coming months. But thank you for joining us tonight. So I have a couple announcements. I'll post them in our Faith RX page and then also in the chat box so you see those. But this is a really interesting, I would say, week to a couple of weeks for Faith RX. We lost our founder a year ago in a couple of weeks, week and a half. And so her name was Becky Konzelman. If you had an opportunity to meet her, you would know that she was an incredible woman. Her faith was contagious, and she was such a strong child of God, strong believer, super passionate about the Lord and proclaiming his word, and just an awesome person. She was a CrossFit Games athlete, a mother of two, and just a friend to all. So if you ever had an opportunity to meet her, she was an incredible lady. And so if you see the champion WOD that's posted on our Facebook page, that's who Becky is. Again, it's a very emotional week for us as an organization. Losing her, it happened very quickly. And so just, you know, as you work out tonight and throughout this week, just if you can, just lift her up and think of her, just as we'll be doing in a chapter as well. We also, you know, with the coronavirus going on, there are a couple different volunteer opportunities if you haven't seen already. But something that Faith RX is doing is you can volunteer at cobrn.com. And we do different service opportunities throughout the year. But this is something that if you have the ability to help those that can't get out of their homes to pick up food or anything like that, if you can volunteer, that would be awesome. Again, as long as you feel comfortable, no pressure there, but we'll be posting that link. The champion WOD, we're not doing that tonight, but it is something that will be going on the March 26th through April 6th. Mike will be making an announcement on our Facebook page for that. So be on the lookout for that specific WOD. We're tailoring it to be an at-home WOD, so you don't necessarily need equipment, but be on the lookout for that. And then lastly, we can't go anywhere. So everything's happening online. So if you do feel like you want to connect to a church or you are missing the word of God in a collective service, there's so many churches that are doing online services. And I just would encourage you to find a church near you to chime in and just really spend time in the word, especially with what's going on in the world today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike. And again, I'll post all of these announcements in our chat box and also on Faith RX. And thank you again for just being here tonight. We really appreciate it. Mike?
Right. My little thing just fell. That stinks. All right. So we doing a workout first, I suppose. How many people we got today? Oh, wow. Decent amount.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Looks like 9.
Awesome.
What I want to know is, Sarah and Chad, are you guys in the same house in different rooms?
Ha, that's funny. No, because Sarah is actually. Are
you quarantined
Kristen.
separate?
No, Sarah's Kristen.
No, we're both at home. He's trying to set up another computer out in the gym and hook it up to the TV out there so we have a bigger screen. So we'll see what happens.
I thought it was social distancing, appropriate social distancing.
Within their own home.
That is possible.
Away.
Cool. Awesome. So we're going to do the workout first tonight. So if you're not working out, apologies, but you can at least see this. We, look at you. You're wearing a vest too, Addison. That's awesome. Cool. All right. So tonight for this workout, and I actually just did this with my wife. So it's definitely doable for everybody. And real quick announcement, actually, my wife is pregnant and we're doing good. So yeah, pretty exciting. We're stoked. But yeah, so she did the workout today with me as well. And she said it was short, but it was really, really tough. So that's good. I'm glad. So tonight, what we're going to do, I have a whiteboard. So I just have cardboard. Yay. Maybe you can read it, maybe not. Who knows? But what it's going to say is 21, 15, 9, burpees, air squats, push-ups, sit-ups, and lunges. Pretty back to the basics, if you will. So we can post that up on the page as well, along with this recording. So that is kind of the way I want to do this workout tonight. It actually was pretty fun to do. We're going to set this as a 15-minute time cap total. So I think I did this earlier, and time to beat is, shoot, what was it? 9:50. So if you could be 9:50, that was my time. I did this with a weight vest. So if you're looking for a little bit more, use a weight vest. The other thing with that, so the way this is written, I feel like everybody is capable of doing this unless you have some sort of injury or limitation. But what you could do, and what I did for burpees, was just make a target for me to touch over top, or you could jump over something if you wanted to make it more difficult. With the air squats, if you don't have a weight vest, but you wanted to grab something like a dumbbell or whatever to do a goblet squat, you could do that as well. If you don't have any equipment or anything at all, my other idea was actually grabbing a bag of chips and eating those while I was doing the air squats. That way you have something to grab to make it like a little bit more difficult. Push-ups are push-ups. If you cannot do push-ups, or 45 total seems like a terrible idea, then you can drop down to your knees. And I'll show you guys this too in just a second. But I want you to keep a nice straight plank. So it should be a straight line drawn from your knees all the way up to your shoulders as you're doing your push-ups. And then with sit-ups, if you're used to doing ab mat sit-ups, sorry if you don't have an ab mat, but sit-ups are something you can do without equipment. You just gotta go back to the basics with it. And lunges, if you want to do walking lunges, feel free to do so. Otherwise, what I tell you to do is probably grab like a yoga mat of some sort, depending on where you're doing this. I'm doing this on a cold concrete floor, so I definitely grabbed a yoga mat to create some sort of insulation. It also helps with the burpees, but the mat did move a little bit, so you may want to put some weight on it, maybe. But yeah, so that's kind of the workout tonight. Before I show all the movements, are there any initial questions?
Are the lunges 1 + 1 = 1 or 1 + 1 = 2?
I was just going with total amount, so
Okay,
each
good.
leg would be 1 rep.
Okay.
I tried putting it on.
Great question. Anybody else? Good deal. All right, if you do have questions, to speak up. What I'm going to do is talk about the burpees and, well, the standards for everything. So if you guys can see me, I think, can everybody see me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah, we can see you.
Excellent. So burpees should be pretty obvious to be able to make sure your whole body is essentially laying on the floor. Wow, I can see my breath. This is going to be chilly. And then if you want to hit a target, feel free to find something high enough, whatever that may be. Otherwise, what I would like for you to make sure you're doing is opening up your hips at the top. Okay? So I'll do a couple burpees real quick, just so I can give you guys an idea. And do it from the side. You can see my hips opening up. All right. The next thing is air squats. Okay? Air squats, pretty simple. One thing I am going to ask for you to do during these air squats is to not touch your knees. Make things a little bit more difficult. I don't care whether you keep your hands up over here, hands out, whatever. If you grab onto something, that obviously helps you. But with the, it would help you to keep your hands off your knees. But let's try to keep our hands off our knees. So the air squat, you're going to go below parallel, stand all the way up, open up your hips. The other thing I want to add is I want you to try to sit back a little bit more. So I know a lot of people with mobility issues sometimes will come up on your toes, shooting your knees forward. I want you to try to push that butt back. Try to keep those knees tracking behind your toes and use your glutes and hamstrings, all the backside of your leg a little bit more. I think that'd be better for you than the quads. All right, so the next thing is push-ups. Push-ups, yay. So you should hit your chest on the ground and then full extension. That's all I really want from this. So it'll look like so. To scale for this, like I said, you could drop down to your knees, and I just want you to keep a nice straight plank. Notice how I have a straight line, or trying to get a straight line, between my shoulders and my knees. All right. Anybody got any questions with that, since we did do a pretty decent modification for that? Cool. All right. Next, we've got sit-ups. So sit-ups. Boy. Don't have an ab mat, but I want you to make sure you're doing is you're coming up, so you're breaking kind of that plane of your hips where you're nice and perpendicular to the ground. Touch all the way, your back all the way down on the ground. I would say to take your hands and put it all the way on the back, but if you are trying to weight these, like I've got a weighted vest, so that makes it easy. It's going to stay in place. But if you're grabbing a weight, hold on to that weight in the front and go just like this. Whew. All right. And then lunge is the last thing. I don't have a lot of space in this garage. They call it a two-car garage, but that's a joke. But either way, I'm going to do mine standing in place like so. And what I want you to do for this is if you're not holding an object, I want you to put your hands over top of your head like this. Keep that chest up. Yeah, buddy. We'll do it from the side a little bit here. All right. Good deal. So that's kind of the workout for tonight. Does anybody have any questions right now?
No.
Awesome. So I am going to attempt to play music on this.
Yeah,
I don't know how well that's going to work out. But if it's muffled and it sounds terrible, yell at me. Otherwise, if you really don't want to hear music from the Zoom, I did post a playlist onto the Facebook event. So at least in the comment. So to be on the Facebook page, to the comment that Jen posted earlier, it'll be the first comment. It'll be the playlist that I'm using for tonight. It's called FAITH RX Denver. It's pretty much the only playlist I ever play at our chapter meetings. And it's a mixture of rap and rock. Sorry, Vince, this is not the nice and spiritual music that you usually listen to. Those of you who don't know Vince, Vince is joining us from Florida today. He was him and Kendra, his wife, they were members of our chapter until they moved to Florida. And Vince and I tried to do a head-to-head workout one time, and all he wanted to listen to was praise and worship music. And I was like, dude, I just can't move fast enough listening to that. Sorry. So,
hey, that's the Spirit of the Lord that's supposed to move you fast, son. Spirit of the Lord.
What happened to you being muted?
You have no.
All right. Cool. So I'll let you guys get situated for a second. Like I said, there'll be a 15-minute time cap for this. We'll just kind of let the clock roll through 15 minutes. I'm going to put some music on, and we'll get started here in about, oh, shoot. I really do want to give you guys a little bit of warm-up. So if you aren't situated, what we'll do is we'll start a warm-up here slightly in about 60 seconds. We'll say that. So get yourself a position, whatever, so that you can see what's going on. We're going to do a relatively quick warm-up, just kind of get our blood flowing, and then we're going to hop right into this, okay? So we'll start in about 45 seconds from now. Well, it's not really loud, is it? All right, cool. So let's start with a warm up. We're gonna do. Oh, there we go. So what I want you guys to do is just start off by bending over and touching your toes. Nice and easy. We're gonna stretch those hamstrings. I want you to keep your knees nice and straight. Bend over, touch your toes. When I tell you, I want you to straighten your back and push your chest to the ground, but keep some pressure on those hamstrings, okay? Keep those knees nice straight. Go ahead, straighten your back and press your chest to the ground. Everything is gonna be all right. Everything is gonna be all right. Be strong, believe. Hang down and touch your toes again. Hang down, touch your toes. So relax that back, curve it, get a nice decompression to it. Wow, this is a great song to start with. This song was actually written about September 11th, too. So another very dark time in our history. Straighten your back, push your chest to the ground. And hang. One more time, just hang. Decompress. All right, awesome. We got lunges today, so let's go ahead and drop down on one knee. I'm going to say let's drop down on the right knee first to start with. I want to get those hands over top. I don't want you to arch your back here. I want it to be nice and straight and shift those hips forward. Samson stretch. Everything is going to be all right. Everything is going to be all right. Be strong, believe. Go ahead and switch legs. All right. Go ahead and stand up. And you know what? We haven't done it in a long time, but I love it. Let's go ahead and do some jumping jacks. Just do it for about 20 seconds or so. Get that heart rate going. How's that vest feeling, Addison?
We got a dog over here. Very upset.
I had one of those too. It made it really tough. All right. Take a break real quick. So what I want you to do, let's start flapping our arms back and forth. And then I want you to bring that left arm across, kind of squeeze it. It's a little difficult if you already have a vest on, but you can do it. It'll be all right. All right, switch arms, switch arms. All right, shake it out real quick. Make sure the ceiling isn't that close to you. And let's go ahead and bring your arm over top. All right, shake it out again. And switch arms. All right, shake it out. All right, what I want you to do now, we've got burpees, air squats, push-ups, sit-ups, and lunges. I want you to give me 4 reps of each. Nice and slow. I don't really care how fast you go. I just want to make sure you've done every one of these movements prior to this workout today. So let's start. Go ahead and do 4 burpees, 4 air squats, 4 push-ups, 4 sit-ups, 4 lunges. Remember not to touch your knees or your legs on the air squats. And lunges are single rep, single leg. So you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Has everybody hit 4 reps of everything? If you haven't, I'll give you about another 15 seconds or so. All right. Cool. So we'll ask one time real quick. We'll give you about a minute to go ahead and grab water if you need it. Otherwise, if you got any other questions, let's go ahead and ask them now. Okay. Good deal. So I think everybody should be close to getting ready. If you're not, you can always start just a little bit late. Again, nobody else is around you, probably, unless you're like Sarah and Chad over here, who's really not doing a great job of social distancing. But yeah, either way. So 21, 15, 9 burpees, air squats, push-ups, sit-ups, and lunges. Back to the basics. Let's do everything the way we're supposed to do. It's good sometimes to reset and do just body weight workouts. So that's what we're going to focus on right now. And I'm excited about this one. This one's a good burn. I want you guys to push hard on this. Try to sprint through and do everything unbroken if you can. I know push-ups are going to be probably the tough part. But you know, do doable sets with push-ups. If you're doing like 8, 7, 5, you're kind of shy on reps. It needs to be 8, 7, 6. But whatever it is that you break up with the push-ups, try to stick to that number that you're shooting for. With everything else, try to stay consistent. Don't sit there and suck wind on the burpees the whole time. Go nice and easy through it. Same thing with the air squats, the sit-ups, and the lunges. Those should be pretty quick, no rest in between. If you're going to rest at all on these things, I'd like to say try to rest in between the movements themselves. Okay? Perfect. Well, we're going to get started, all right? So I'm going to give you guys a 10-second countdown, and I'm going to jack the music up on my end. If it sounds muffled, feel free to pause it. And then I will give you an update about every 5 minutes or so. My recommendation is you guys kind of try to keep a clock on your own because I didn't really think of that. So I don't have a clock over here. But I will try to tell you what times are for it. And we'll go from there. Last minute for questions. Last call for questions. Awesome. Okay, guys, we ready? We're going to get started here in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good job, you guys. Keep pushing.
right, you guys, you're 2 minutes in. 2 minutes in. Let's go. Let's go. Keep rolling, guys. Come on. 21 is going to be the longest round. Everything else is going to go real quick after this. You got this. Let's go. Come on.
Good job, you guys. Keep working.
Yep.
Airtight, y'all. Airtight. That argument is airtight. Airtight.
All right. You guys are over 3 minutes through. Let's keep that pace. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, come on. Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. You guys are 4 minutes in. 4 minutes in. Let's go. Let's go. Push it. Hands on the head for them lunges. Unless you're holding something. Right, nice job, guys. Nice job. Nice work.
Good job, you guys.
All right, you guys, that's 5 minutes in. 5 minutes in. You got 10 minutes before the cap. Let's go. I don't think anybody needs that cap today, though. Come on.
Good job, you guys.
Let's go. Come on.
Addison, are you holding your dog?
What'd you say? All right, let's go. Let's go. Come on, guys. All right. You guys are like 7.5 minutes in. It's actually 6.5 minutes. My bad. 6.5 minutes in. Here we go. go, guys. Come on. Got 8 minutes remaining. 7 minutes in. Come on, guys, let's do this. You guys are 8 minutes in, 8 minutes. Let's go, guys. You guys are coming up on the 9-minute mark. Nine minutes right now. You got 6 minutes before the cap. You got this, though. Let's go. Oh, come on, come on. Push hard on this one. You guys are past 9.5 minutes now.
Good job, good job, good job, you guys.
Keep rolling. At the 10-minute mark right now. 10-minute mark right now. Come on, come on.
I might just dance.
Just fight a little longer, my friend.
All right, come on, let's go.
Not worth it in the end. But when you got nobody to turn to.
I'm holding, keeping it together. I'm solid in every space. Crying whenever they need a room. They don't know the battle I face. They don't understand what I'm going through. They don't trying to cover my soul. I'm just trying to down with the God. I'm trying to remember the way. I'm trying to get back to my home. But I can't do this on my own. That's why I'm just to you. Because I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to do.
Just fight a little longer, my friend.
Keep fighting, guys. Keep fighting through this. Come on. Come on, you know you wanted to do something like this all day. You've been cooped up here in Denver. It's been snowing, so you haven't been doing anything outside either. Let's go. Come on. You guys got 4 minutes remaining. That means you're over the 11-minute mark. Keep rolling.
You got nobody to turn to. Just hold on and I'll find you.
Let's go, let's go, let's go. Let's do it, let's do it. Come on. 3.5 minutes left, guys. Come on.
And I don't know all of the outcomes. Don't know what happens tomorrow. Don't know that ocean of outcomes. Don't let me try my song. And don't let me stay at the bottom. I feel like it's always too deep to climb. I've been looking for a way out. When I set up for a face of mine. Getting up a piece of heaven like you hoping that I put together something right. Tell me all I got is all I need. To to me, you gon' help me stay in front. Everyone trying to go with my soul, I'm just trying to find where to go. I'm trying to remember the way.
12 minutes in, you got 3 minutes left. Let's finish under the cap. Come on.
And I don't know what else to do.
Let the fear make you feel like you can't find this on your own. You know I'll be there for you.
Come on, come on.
You'll never be alone.
Let's get it, guys. Come on. Keep fighting. Keep fighting. Let's go.
I
I know those push-ups are terrible. It's the worst part of this. Man, the burpees that take forever, but you already passed those. Let's go. Come on. That's 13 minutes. You guys got 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left. Let's go. Come on.
All right, come on, y'all.
Yeah.
I did the comp version because my dog.
Let's get it, guys. If you're already done, unmute yourself. Feel free to talk to everybody. Let them know you're caring for them.
I'll see you, Chad.
Good job, you guys.
I'll see you, Sarah.
Let's go, guys. Let's go. You got 90 seconds left. 90
Keep
seconds
pushing.
left.
Keep pushing.
Here we go.
Hey, Vince, we can't see you.
Come on, Vince. Work a little harder, buddy.
Good job,
Let's
Jen.
go. Perfect song to end on. This one's
Yeah.
called Rise. Let's get it. Come on. You got 1:20 remaining. Let's get it. Come on.
Good job, Jen. Good job, Chad.
We muted or no?
Great job. Great
Let's get it. You got
job.
1 minute, 60 seconds remaining. 1 minute.
Can you hear us, Kristen?
What?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
45 seconds. Let's go. 30 seconds. Come on, guys. Let's get this. Let's go. Let's get it. Let's get it. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 20 seconds. Come on. 15 seconds. Finish under that cap. 10 seconds remaining. Let's go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time.
Great job.
Awesome.
Who else worked on?
All right.
Did Jen work out? Jen, did you work out?
I got some of it on the floor.
I was gonna say you don't look like you worked out.
Yeah, but that room looks like it smells really good, though.
1, 2, 3.
Smells amazing over here.
There's only like 3 people.
I could definitely use some aromatherapy right now.
Did Jim work out?
I don't know. Did you work out?
Yeah, we can't see him.
No, I can't see you. This is Kendra.
Awesome work, you guys. Thanks, Mike.
Nice job.
Nice job,
Awesome.
everybody.
Hey, so last thing with that too, you guys are a little sedentary because we just can't get out of the house unless you're an essential business like nursing or grocery store workers, trucking, whatever it may be. But right now is a great time to work on your mobility. Okay, so keep that in mind. Do some stretching. Make sure that you're loosening up. It's an excellent time to drop back down to that, especially if you don't have any weights at your house. So last thing I'll leave you with is that. But other than that, great workout today, guys. I'm really glad you guys joined us. And Addison's got some words of hope for us coming up.
Oh, I hope to catch my breath first.
Maybe.
I was like thinking, well, this is fine. I'm gonna be barefoot, and I can do a weight vest with all body weight. And then you said you did it in 9 minutes. And I was still like, well, first off, it wasn't until the last round I remember that I forgot to do my lunges from the 15 round. So I struggled then. But, oh, all right. Let's see what we got here. Apologies if I'm catching my breath a little bit. But normally I can get away with it because Mike will schedule a workout, and I'll say something like, oh, I need to stop like 5 minutes before the workout's done so I can catch my breath to get ready to talk. But I forgot to do that this time. So apologies, but all right. Well, again, I just want to echo what Kristen was saying. You know, obviously we know things are a little bit unusual, a little bit unprecedented, if you will. But what I'm really excited about, and I'm really glad to see all of you guys here tonight, is you know, we don't really know how long this new normal is going to last, but we're not going to let it completely interrupt what we normally do. We appreciate you guys sort of being forgiving and showing some grace and technology and stuff. Overall, I think it's worked pretty great. But we're just excited that, you know, it says in the Bible to not forsake meeting together. At the same time, we're going to have wisdom, and we're not going to meet in person. We're going to make sure that we're protecting of each other and that we're loving each other well in that. But I'm just excited to see what the next few weeks, hopefully only just a few weeks, will look like, even if it's in sort of a different setting. Again, as Kristen mentioned, for those of you who may not be aware, not that we always get to pick the best timing for things, but you know, with the passing of our founder coming on right about the 1 year mark, Easter coming up, we had something called the Cherry Challenge. We had a lot of things that were planned, and sometimes God just chooses to let interruptions happen. But a couple quick things I want to talk about. I made a post in the Facebook group earlier this week. I made 2 posts. One was serious and one was very not serious. If you guys saw my joke workout at home plan that Mike surely wouldn't have approved of. But I've seen, especially in the Christian community, sort of this concept of fear being thrown around a lot. So a lot of people saying, hey, don't fear. You know, 2 Timothy 1:7 has been thrown out a lot. For God does not give us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of love and hope and of a sound mind. And all these are great, right? Like I'm not saying the Bible is not true in those regards. We should be fearless. One of the biggest elements of Faith RX is a lot of people have Faith RX shirts that say fearless across them, but the connotation of what fearless can bring can be very different. Some people, you think fearless is, hey, I'm going to go, you know, walk across oncoming traffic, and I'm going to see what happens. You know, some people may say fearless is storming hell with a water pistol. Some people think fearless is just walking across the room to talk to their coworker who hasn't heard about Jesus before. There's a lot of elements of fearlessness. But what does that look like sort of in this new economy, if you will? And there's a great quote that I've seen circled around a lot in sort of the social media circles. A.W. Tozer, who is or was a theologian, a really what's the right word? He had a great rhetoric to him, if you will. He's got a book that's about 60 pages long that took me about 3 months to finish, just because of how dense it is and how thick his words are. But he said a scared world needs a fearless church. And I think a lot of us, you know, we don't need to highlight the importance and the severity of what's happening, right? The world is scared. I think, or at least what I've seen, not many of us are as scared of necessarily contracting the virus, but many of us are maybe more scared of the windfall that's going to happen. How's it going to impact jobs? How's it going to impact school? For those of you who have kids, those of you who are in school, how's it going to impact future finances, retirement? How's it impacting older loved ones? There's a lot of fear that comes down that is sort of this trickle down effect. And a lot of that can sort of build up and create anxiety. It can create worry. It creates strain. It creates burden. And a lot of us, maybe we have questions of our own, sort of doubts, thoughts, concerns, fears, if you will, maybe questions of why is God doing this? A lot of people maybe who don't know Jesus are also questioning at the same time, hey, what's going on here? You know, I thought that wildfires all across the world were the worst thing we were going to experience this year. And now it's only March. What is happening in our world? But actually, the pastor of my church was telling a couple of us who were on the board earlier this week, he said, what if you considered this? consider that God chose us to lead now. That for such a time as this, the Bible talks about in Esther that she was anointed for such a time as this to bring freedom to her people. And so for such a time as this, what if we are being called to lead now? There's stories about the disciples in the book of Acts. There's stories of how one in particular that comes to mind is how they were known for being the biggest proponents of adoption. Is that you'd see these babies that were unwanted, maybe because they didn't come from a good bloodline, maybe because somebody didn't have they were the wrong gender, whatever it might have been. They're literally being thrown into trash heaps. And Christians said, hey, I don't care what this means for my life. I don't care if this means a financial burden on my life. I don't care if this means these are going to be scary. If I have to have another mouth to feed, I'm going to love people well in spite of the scared world doesn't know what's going on. You see all kinds of situations all throughout history where Christians have risen to the challenge of not letting things hold them back, and showing people that, showing the world that the people that God has created in his own image are resilient. We're resilient people. We are called to endure. We are given strength. And one of the cool things about that, as we make the parallel between our fitness and our faith, a lot of times we work out, we do this workout, the 21-15-9, it takes somewhere between, if you're Mike, 9 minutes, if you're Vince, 8 minutes and 59 seconds, if you're me, maybe a little bit longer, whatever it might be. It takes a little bit of time. We're working on our fitness, right? But in that fitness, maybe towards a long-term endurance that actually is designed so that in the future, that functional fitness element, when things come into our lives that require our strength, require our endurance, we're prepared. And now we're in a season where we're being asked, okay, do you have the endurance? Do you have the strength that God is going to be calling you to action? And so a couple quick things on fearlessness, and then one more verse that sort of stuck out that I wanted to highlight that tries to get at a little bit of the why and then the what now. Excuse me. And so fearlessness, that doesn't mean that we're not allowed to be upset or frustrated. I say this a lot, and especially when we think about coming up on the year of Becky Konzelman, one of our founders, passing. Does that mean that we're not allowed to be frustrated or mourn or be upset? Of course not. I think there's a misconception in Christianity that you have to act like you have all your stuff together. That when times are tough, you can put on a good face and you can greet the world with a smiling, shining, it's such a good day, my brother. I can't believe all the things that God has blessed me with. No, it's okay to be upset. Probably a third of the book of Psalms is David just pissed off at what God has done in his life or the scenario that he's been in. And in this time, mourning and being upset and frustrated is simply our acknowledgement that we live in a broken world, that things aren't the way they're designed to be. God created the world to be perfect. Through the fall of man is broken. And us being upset with that is simply us acknowledging, hey, God wanted something better for this and we're not there yet. And that doesn't mean that we complain. That doesn't mean that we simply gripe and get frustrated to the extent of saying, oh, God, woe is me. But rather we can acknowledge that God has called us to something greater. God has called our world, and he is eventually restoring it and redeeming us, and is going to be creating us into a new creation that will eventually be brought to a newness. And in Revelation, I don't have the verse on me, 21, 21:5 verse 9, it says, or 21 verses 5 through 6 says, and one day there will be no more mourning or crying or pain anymore, no more shame, for he who is seated on the throne says, behold, I am making all things new. And so we find ourselves living in between the now and the not yet, living in the situation now where we're in a broken world and things are crazy and all sorts of stuff is happening. We don't know how to deal with it. But we also need to focus on the future, saying, hey, God has prepared something incredible for me coming up. On the other end, we can't simply be saying, yeah, the world means nothing. God is preparing this amazing feast and this amazing, beautiful kingdom for me that's perfect beyond all measure, and be ignoring what we have. We're sort of stuck in this middle ground of the kingdom is coming and the kingdom is here. And so when we're addressed with what's happening in our society, when we're addressed with this, we're allowed to be frustrated, but we can't let that frustration control us. We're allowed to be real. People want to see us be real. People want to see us not put on a facade. What a lot of scholars are showing nowadays is that the current generation is one of the greatest fake sniffers of all history. They're going to see through your BS. They're going to see through any kind of mask that you're putting on. They want you to be real, but at the same time, understand in the middle of all that craziness, there's something far greater to look forward to. A second element of fear that I want us to be careful of, and I'm not calling anybody out specifically on this, but I've seen some people say, yeah, this is not really that big a deal, right? It's going to blow over. It's going to end soon. Everything, media is yeah, whatever. All right? I'm not here to try to argue a political perspective on that. Just what I'm saying is that fear does not mean you aren't supposed to be cautious. You're not supposed to be safe. That there, in many ways, us being fearless doesn't mean that we simply ignore wisdom. And that fearless in many ways allows us to have courage with wisdom, and those two together allow us to really worship and serve other people well. It says in 1 Corinthians 13, verse 7, that love protects, that love is protecting of others, it always protects. And so it's not brave or evidence of fearlessness for us to simply say, hey, I'm invincible, come at me, world, but rather saying, hey, no, in spite of what the world is throwing at me, I'm not scared of what they're throwing at me. And then finally, the third one, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is being fearless doesn't mean we have to pretend like things haven't changed. Of course not. We adapt. One of the greatest things that the Christian church has shown us over all of history is that it's able to adapt. Is that when different things are thrown at it, different plagues, this is by no means the first plague that we've experienced as the world. Every single one of the greatest Christian scholars that we can look back to has had a moment where they said, how do we handle plague? How do we handle epidemics? C.S. Lewis went through this. Every single influenza, Spanish flu, Black Plague, Christian leaders have been asked, okay, what are we doing? So the fact is this isn't new, but we need to say, okay, what do we do with it now? So part of that is we don't simply pretend like nothing's happened, but we also don't let that get the best of us. So like I mentioned, we're going to adapt. We're going to offer ways for people to connect, to worship, to sweat at a distance from each other. We're going to make sure that people have the opportunity to connect. We're going to make sure that we do not give up on meeting together and encouraging one another, as it says in Hebrews 10:24. It just may look a little bit different. And as people are going to be craving community, maybe in this first 7 to 10 days, we're still trying to settle in, figure out what it's like. Okay, it's like a mini staycation or whatever your experience may have been so far. But it's going to be pretty quick that we're going to have a lot more craving for community, craving for in-person interaction. And the church, what if we have been called for such a time as this to lead the charge and to be the ones who connect, to be the ones who engage with people? And so I offered a few tips. I'll go through them very, very quickly as some things that we can do in the season. One is pray. We're Christians, or if you are a Christian, I'll say that should always be the first resort, not the last resort. And it's something, our connection to God's heart. Allows us to be in union with what he's doing in our midst. Sometimes he answers prayers the ways that we want. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he stays silent. But through it all, it allows us to hear how God is working. The second, I just mentioned, it's to meet. Find ways to meet with each other. Join us online. If you can't work out, not a big deal. You can just watch all of us be miserable for 15 minutes in our basements with our dogs interrupting, whatever it is. Find ways to meet with one another, whether it be, well, it's not physically, let's worship together. Let's be in community together. I've seen so many cool, amazing stories of people saying, hey, I've been meeting with these people for the past 10 years every week. We weren't going to let that stop us. So we got on a FaceTime, and our FaceTime didn't have enough people. So we had a overflow room on a second FaceTime. So people are finding ways to adapt, and I encourage you to continue to do that as well. Another one is serve. Kristen led off meeting with this as well. There's countless ways for us to do this. I'm excited to see how many of us who want to sort of marry our faith and our fitness together can use that in a healthy way. And one of the simplest ways is reaching out to your neighbors saying, hey, I'm available. Can I grab your prescriptions? Can I grab you some groceries? Anything I can do for you? Hey, can I pray for you this time? Hey, how are you doing? I think there are plenty of people that are in our lives that are going to be hit more with the loneliness that's about to come than maybe we expect. One of the best ways we can do that is to reach out to them, show them that we love them. Another one is to rest. Sometimes we're being forced to shut down, or sometimes now we are being forced to shut down, which is a little bit of an abrupt interruption to our normal schedule. If a lot of people who like to work out and are into CrossFit, being told to rest is not an easy task. And this is one that we know God's called us to, both in a sort of a structured way, like a Sabbath, like taking a day off a week, but also in sort of the stillness of our heart, the way that we the way that we approach the world, the way that we handle our time and our talents, and the ways we do those things. What if we were being called to rest in this season? Maybe that means that we're to read the Bible in a new, fresh way, or we're catching up with a friend, or starting to mentor somebody, or asking to be mentored, or maybe you just take a nap. Whatever it is, this is the time that rest is important, and maybe take this forced rest that's being thrown on us to not look back 2, 4, 6, however many weeks it is later and say, I wish I had stewarded that time a little bit better. And then really, the final one I want to talk about is this concept of worship. And this is a verse that came to me earlier today, and many of you may have heard this before. It's in James chapter 1, verses 2, starting in verse 2. And it's this verse that it doesn't make a lot of sense. Or maybe when you read it, you say, yeah, that's great. That's not really impacting me right now. But when I'm reading it again, I'm saying, okay, this is a little bit, this kind of smarts a little bit. This sort of stings. What do I do with this? And so in James 1, starting in verse 2, it says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds." All right, let me stop there. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials. Count it all joy when you meet trials. Like, you could put trials in there as anything the world's going on with right now. Count it all joy, my brothers, when your mom gets the coronavirus. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you get laid off. Count it all joy when your stock portfolio crashes. Count it all joy when you can't get any work done, when you can't sleep, when you can't rest, when you're worried, when you're anxious. Count it all joy when you meet trials of various kinds. That's a rough verse to swallow. And again, there's been plenty of times I feel like I've read this verse in a setting where I'm on a mountaintop, I'm not in a valley, and on that mountaintop I say, yeah, that's great. When I get to that, I'm sure I'll remember it. And then I get to, I say, why didn't I remember that? Why is it so much harder than I thought it would be? But the next verses somewhat give us that understanding, somewhat give us the why. So I led in talking a little bit more about how is fearlessness impacting us, but then sort of why. What do we do with this now that we've been handed to us? It says in verse 3, "For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Now, I think all of us probably would agree that similar to working out, right? Like when you work out, you tear muscles, they grow back stronger. It's a lot more difficult to see that emotionally, spiritually, mentally. So even more difficult to see that when you're in the middle of it. When you're in the middle of saying, hey, anytime I'm expecting an email to come in saying, all hands meeting, we have to talk about our future. Any point I'm expecting to get the call that says, hey, so-and-so taking a turn for the worse. I'm expecting to run out of toilet paper or whatever it is, right? We're expecting things to turn south, but it says we should count it all joy because the testing of that faith produces steadfastness. And then it goes on one step further and says, let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. I think what goes on, it goes on, I think it's an important verse that sort of encapsulates what a lot of this means. Excuse me. And then it keeps going down, and it says in verse 12, "Blessed is the man and the woman who remain steadfast under trial. For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him." So it sort of culminates in this idea of like, yeah, hey, basically when things suck, count it all as joy. That makes no sense. Well, you should be able to count it all as joy because you know that in the midst of the trials, you're going to be sort of build a strength and an endurance and a steadfastness, and that's going to really polish your rough edges. It's going to allow you to worship God in a new way. And those who make it to the end, those who remain steadfast under trial, those who, when you see your retirement account go close to zero, you remain steadfast. When you hear that extra cough and you wonder, am I okay? What's happening here? You remain steadfast. When you see people around you freaking out, you remain steadfast. When you hear of your family maybe struggling, you remain steadfast. And it's then and only then that it says we will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. And so I kind of want to wrap up with that thought, right? When it says promise to those who love him, being promises by God, it's going to be so difficult. And I know many of us, maybe we are being directly impacted right now. Maybe some of you, you're sort of seeing it coming, and maybe some of you, you're in a spot where it won't impact you as much. I know there's people who are in different seasons right now and different positions as it relates to how this whole mess is impacting all of us. But when it comes to the end of the day, we sort of have to ask ourselves, what are we going to look like through this? What are we going to look like through the end? But we have to always trust that God is with us. You know, it's almost a shame that we wait until Easter time, or excuse me, till Christmas to talk about God with us, Emmanuel. This idea of Emmanuel. One of the names Jesus had was Emmanuel, which means literally God with us. And what all these verses are saying is that in the midst of trials, the biggest cure to this, the biggest salvation that we have, literal salvation, and also sort of rescuing us from this mess, is knowing that God is with us. God says he is with us so many times all throughout the Bible. Says, I will not leave you or forsake you. And that's a hope that we can have. That's a reason that why in the midst of trials we can have joy, is because we know that not only are we going to be made stronger, not only are we going to grow stronger and develop more spiritual muscles on the other end of it, but we know that God is with us through it. And so a lot of times when we ask for God to pray, say, God, will you rescue me from the situation? Instead, God is saying, you know, I'm not going to rescue you from this, but I'm going to walk with you through it. And so my challenge to you guys is throughout the rest of, again, whatever this looks like, is look to see the joy that God is going to be bringing to you. Look to find joy because of the trials. Look to find joy because of the steadfastness, to remain steadfast, knowing that God is working on a blessing that we can't believe, knowing that God is with us, and knowing that he wants good things for us. He wants to give good gifts to his children, that we may simply remain steadfast in the midst of a crazy, crazy world and all that's going on with us right now. I'm going to close this in prayer, and then we'll finish things up here. God, we love you. I know it's a hard thing to say when we're trying to see what that love looks like in our lives, whether it be just the hecticness that came in prior to all this going down with things happening in our world, whether it be a lot of uncertainty and darkness that's happening in our midst, or whether it be fear of what's happening in the future. God, may you remind us consistently that you are with us, that you are a loving Father who wants to bless us, who wants to give us good things, that you are a loving Father who has granted us peace, and that you give us the joy that is found in facing trials of many kinds, and for knowing, Lord, that you have a steadfastness waiting for us. You have a strength and an endurance that only you can give us, that the world will look to and wonder, how can they be steadfast? How can they be immovable? How can they have endurance in this time? And I pray that you will show us that. You remind us in a new, fresh way that you are working among us, that you are not finished with what is good, and that you're continuing to work in our midst, that we can worship you and we can give you glory through it all. Well, thank you for this community. Thank you that we have the chance to meet together, even if it looks a little bit different, sweat where we're at, Lord, worship you where we're at, continue to move forward and be the church, be the light to a dark world, be an encouragement and a hope to people who don't have any, and allow us to just lead the charge for such a time as this, to be your people and to love one another. We thank you for what you're doing. We ask these things in your son's name. Amen. All right, well, Kristen, I'll hand it back to you if you got anything else to wrap us up with.
Well, thanks so much, Addison. Thank you guys again for joining us this evening. Again, we know it looks different, but hopefully this sense of community just brings you a little bit more peace of what's going on in the world. And go back to follow our Facebook page if you don't yet, for just different service opportunities. I posted them all here in our chat room to volunteer. Again, we're going to do our champion WOD starting next week, the 26th through April 6th. So watch out for Mike. He'll make a post there. And feel free to hang out on here for a little bit if you want, just to say hello. Make sure if you can, if you haven't posted in the chat box who's here, just so that we can follow up with you if we haven't followed up with you before, and just stay in touch. So our next meeting will be virtual. Probably the next few meetings will be virtual. So it'll be April 3rd at 6:30, and then we'll just continue to update our Facebook page then. But thank you. Continue to just hold on to your faith, hold on to those positive moments that you have through your day, and just keep moving and stretching. Like Mike said, it's amazing what you can lift around your house to get a good workout. So thank you guys so much. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. That was awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm gonna go.
Thanks for joining in, you guys. I really appreciate it.
So we're all going to Chick-fil-A, right? That's what we normally do.
Yeah. Chick-fil-A drive-thru still open. I went yesterday.
Yeah, we'll just give a caravan Chick-fil-A drive-through and shout out back to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
How was your workout?
Chick-fil-A.
They deliver. Postmates.
They
Or
do
DoorDash.
deliver. Yeah, you can Postmate it. Yeah.
And I got an email from today saying that they're reducing their minimum catering order from 150 down to 75. So
Oh,
got to have
Pieces or
me some
dollars?
nugs.
that is that's like a personal meal for Vince right there.
Exactly. That's the appetizer.
Vince, are you back off of mute? I'd love to see your face.
Who?
Vince. See, we need Vince because Vince is normally Mike's punching bag. And then Vince left, I became the punching bag. But I actually deserve it because I'm not very good at a lot of the things that I do. So we're set just fine. All right, I'm gonna end up rolling out. I'm gonna go grab something to eat. Good talking to everybody.
Bye, Addison. Take
Dude,
care.
thanks, guys. I have to roll out too. I like that term, roll out.
You should probably do it more than one way, guys. That'd help.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
I'm going to bed.
Good night.
Bye.
Sarah,
Good
how are
night,
you
Vince.
doing? Sarah, are you hanging in there?
Hold on a second.
I'm going to stop recording.
Be a good idea.
Okay, there we go. My husband cut off